In a previous video, I talked about how some people turn into ghouls, what their new lives were like in the post-war world, and their potential for immortality thanks to radiation. However, while this is true, it's not quite the immortality you would hope for. While they do have a unique mutation allowing their bodies to be healed by radiation, their brains are destroyed by it, and it's that destruction, along with a few other things, causing them to go feral. Feral ghouls, also known as feral necrotic post-humans, or simply ferals, are ghouls that have lost their ability to reason, and according to a large percentage of survivors, all ghouls will inevitably go feral, and to a certain extent, that is true. Numerous attempts have been made to figure out how to prevent feralization, or cure it entirely, but all efforts have failed. Even so, there are ways to delay it, being social, being driven, avoiding radiation, having the right genetics, and one other thing I will talk about in just a moment. In spite of survivors believing ghouls can turn feral at a moment's notice, that's not really the case. Instead, they slowly shut down. They wander aimlessly, occasionally suffering from colonic seizures, and repeatedly mutter their own name. If you're unsure if a ghoul is either turning or has already turned, there is another scientific method you could use. Because if you didn't know,
a feral ghoul can't abide a chicken. If he goes for him, we kill him.
Joking aside, once a ghoul is feral, they lose all capacity to reason, relentlessly attacking their friends, family, and even pets. The only thing they don't attack is other ghouls. And this could have something to do with temperature and/or radiation, as ghouls and ferals don't produce any body heat of their own, and they continuously emit lethal levels of radiation, so they might be able to detect other ghouls based on these two things. But there is something humans can do to prevent ferals attacking them, and I'm not talking about the ghoul mask. Ferals are driven solely by instincts. They seek out sources of radiation and cluster in groups for greater strength. After which they enter into a state of hibernation, rarely waking to stretch their legs, only moving once the radiation has been absorbed, or if they've been disturbed. When provoked, they shriek, alerting the others, and using their collective strength, they overpower and subdue their prey. In the event the feral is encountered away from a source of radiation, they will most likely feed on the fallen target to replenish their strength. Otherwise, they will return to their resting place to hibernate, all the while absorbing more and more radiation until they inevitably turn into glowing ferals. While the majority of ferals are mindless creatures, there are instances where they have not only acted friendly towards humans, but also willingly allowed themselves to be captured. One such occasion involves Initiate Clark. When the Brotherhood first arrived in the Commonwealth, they cleared Boston Airport of hostiles. During the liberation, they killed countless ferals, but after a while, the ferals stopped attacking and started running away. Nevertheless, the Brotherhood pursued them, hell-bent on wiping them out entirely. Now Clark viewed the cleansing as slaughter and felt bad for the ones that ran away, so to make amends, Clark stole food and took it to the ruins beneath the airport to feed the ferals, not only to prevent them from returning to the surface in search of food, but to also show them compassion in the hopes that they may one day do the same for him. And to be fair, in the event you don't support his actions, Clark and the ferals join forces to kill the player, insinuating that maybe ferals can be tamed so long as they understand the simple equation of humans provide food, food is energy, and energy is life. And there are more instances of feral ghouls being friendly towards humans in return for receiving energy. In Springvale, inside the Holy Light Monastery, there's a splinter group from the Church of the Children of Atom calling themselves the Apostles of the Eternal Light, or Children of Light. Unlike the Children of Atom who seek division, the act of creating new worlds with nuclear fission, the Children of Light seek enlightenment through ghoulification. Both groups still worship Atom, their creator, but the Children of Light believe that by becoming ghouls they can be reborn, no longer dying to starvation, illness, or age, needing only Atom's glow to be happy. And there's two members of their flock who have achieved enlightenment, Atom's champion and Son of Atom. Both ferals do not attack the rest of the flock or the player. And again, this could be instinct telling them to be passive, as the Children of Light provide them with more than enough radiation to feed on. Or their deity truly does exist in one form or another and is keeping the flock safe. I can't really think of any other reason why the ferals would be passive, so if you have your own theory, let me know in the comments. There's one other instance I can think of where ferals and humans have come together for some jolly cooperation. Only this time, the ghouls weren't friendly because of energy. In Fallout 3, an Enclave officer once encountered a group of docile ferals and managed to capture one of them for study. I say capture, but it willingly followed him back to base. We don't get to see this encounter, but we can listen to the officer's field report.
Sir, I encountered 3 ferals on my patrol. This was somewhere around 0300 hours, I think, and it was dark, so they saw me first. I discharged my firearm 4 times, fatally striking 2 of the 3. My weapon jammed before I could fire on the 3rd target. Just then I realized it wasn't engaging. I knew our orders were to report on anything unusual, and, well, I thought that was pretty strange. He actually followed me back on his own. We put him in the trailer with the other, and he's been quiet as you like. Strangest thing I've ever seen.
Why did a feral follow a human and willingly allow itself to be captured? Well, I believe they were acting on instinct. The feral knew it could either be killed, like the others, or surrender and survive. Much like the ferals at Boston Airport, who instinctively ran away to avoid dying, only in this instance running away wasn't an option, so instead it surrendered. There's no other mention of this ghoul, or the officer for that matter, but the feral most likely ended up becoming one of the test subjects seen inside Raven Rock, and perhaps the other ferals here acted in the same way. They too allowed themselves to be captured in the hopes of living longer lives, but that's just a theory. Despite all ghouls more or less ending up feral, as it's really only a matter of time before radiation destroys their brains, there is something they can do to prevent going feral, and it doesn't involve being social, being driven, or avoiding radiation. Instead, all they need is the caps to buy it, or the knowledge to make it themselves. Now, the show doesn't specifically state what Cooper is consuming to maintain his faculties, but there is a very good chance it's pure Radaway, or Radaway cut with other chems to increase its effectiveness. Maybe its strength is too strong for regular people, which explains why only ghouls are seen using it, and maybe due to it being a mix of Radaway and something else, it now has to be inhaled instead of injected. Before Cooper was dug up by Honcho and his friends, there's 2 bags of something being drip-fed into the coffin to prevent him turning feral. It is in the same bag as Radaway, it is the same colour as Radaway, and while the show doesn't reveal what it is, it did used to be Radaway, but for whatever reason that changed and now the bags are just blank, perhaps to make it more mysterious. But it's pretty obvious someone has figured out radiation creates ferals, and we know that as long as ghouls consume radiation for energy, then they don't need to eat or drink, and Cooper is seen several times eating and drinking during the show. And that's because he's not getting the energy from radiation, not intentionally anyway. He knows what it will do to his brain, so he's taking Radaway, maybe mixed with something else, to purge it from his system. I guess the good news is the residual radiation from the Great War won't last forever, meaning ghouls may one day not have to worry about turning feral. Until then, all ghouls have to be social, driven, have the right genetics, and have access to the chem. But with both humans taking Radaway to prevent radiation sickness, and in some cases ghoulification, and ghouls taking Radaway to prevent feralization, finding a viable source isn't as easy as it once was. And that's led to certain individuals creating more and imprisoning those who can't pay. Prisoners who I suspect are then sold to pay off their debt, something they all want to do, but in many cases can't do, meaning their lives will end with them going feral. While some ferals have struck gold encountering people like Clark and Marie Curie III, the majority of them will do nothing more than seek out radiation and hibernate until death, which, thanks to their mutation, has to be at the hands of humans or wild animals. And that's why I firmly believe it's better for ghouls on the brink of going feral to have one last happy memory and a quick, pain-free end. Be sure to show your support by liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already for more Fallout content. If there's anything you'd like to see in a later video, leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. With that said, thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.